The great rolling plains of Ukraine are home to 52 million people living in small farming communities growing wheat. When Russia led the Soviet Union, this was its breadbasket, producing food for the state and people living in the cities. As the cities grew, so did the need for more food and more power. Power to heat and light homes, power to fuel industry to make the machines to cultivate the land. And the chosen way was nuclear power, cheap, efficient and modern. In the north lay Chernobyl, an ideal site for a nuclear power station, not too far from the capital, the great city of Kiev, and beside a vast water supply. But power from nuclear energy is immensely powerful and, out of control, immensely dangerous. And at Chernobyl, a dreadful accident happened which changed the history of nuclear power. On April the 26th, 1986, during special tests, the core of the huge reactor was getting hot. This is where the heat from reactions with uranium drives turbines and generators, and the operators were losing control. Finally, the reaction ran away and the core exploded, blowing the plant wide open and starting a poisonous fire which burnt for 10 days. As it burned, it spewed out radioactive dust containing cesium, strontium and plutonium, the most dangerous substance known to science, invisible and long-lasting. It causes cancer. Most of the brave men who fought the fire died soon after from radiation sickness, but they were not the only victims. People, tens, hundreds, even thousands of miles away, were and still are affected by this terrible disaster. It took some time for the news to leak out. For one thing, the authorities tried to hide it, scared of people's reaction. In Kiev, only 100 kilometers away, and 4 days after the accident, the crowds at the May Day celebrations were blissfully unaware of the deadly cloud over their heads. On April 29th, 3 days after the accident, the winds were blowing to the north and the cloud was spread over Belarus and towards Scandinavia. Scientists started to pick up signals, and in Poland the authorities tried to protect children, as this news clip shows.
Radiation levels are rising dangerously in Poland. Children are fed Lugol, an iodine solution that is thought to prevent radioactive iodine from building up in the thyroid gland.
The Swedish government demanded that Moscow tell them what had happened, but Russia was saying nothing.
The majority of Swedes are concerned rather than alarmed about this leak, though there are some reports of families insisting on staying indoors. The experts say that's unnecessary, yet no one is prepared to state categorically the worst of this contamination is over.
No one seemed prepared or able to say just how dangerous it was. News teams tried to find out.
London Weather Centre, after looking at current wind patterns, was confident the United Kingdom wasn't threatened.
Basically speaking, there's very little wind over here at the moment. What wind there is will take the cloud southwards or eastwards. In other words, away from the United Kingdom and away from the rest of Western Europe.
But the reassuring experts were wrong. 10 days after the accident, it was confirmed that Britain, 2,400 kilometres away, was also under the cloud. Farmers in Cumbria were unable to see that their animals were affected by radioactivity.
So only now, one full week after the disaster at Chernobyl, is the scale of the after-effects becoming clear. Low levels of radioactivity have been detected right across the United Kingdom, up to 10 times the normal level in places, but experts say there is no risk to health.
In the end, the whole world was affected by the cloud from Chernobyl, blown by winds high in the atmosphere. Back in Belarus, it had taken the authorities 9 days to accept that people closest to the disaster must be moved. All 20,000 people of Pripyat, the nearest city, left by bus, with few possessions, not told the full danger, believing they'd soon be home. A year later, as these Western TV pictures show, they were still exiled. Immediately around the power station, and for 100 kilometers beyond, the land was devastated. A bleak landscape of abandoned homes. Nearly 135,000 people were moved to start new lives in other parts of Russia. Strange things have happened since. Trees grow upside down, and cattle grow with deformed heads. And yet some people were never moved. Some even returned, having nowhere else to go. They are living on radioactive land, eating polluted food. When the reactor blew, it released radiation into the ground as well, and from there into the underground water, which flows into rivers and lakes. The water people drink is poisoned. The water got into the plant cycle, into crops, sold as food in markets throughout Belarus and Ukraine. These are poor countries where importing clean food for decades would be impossibly expensive. Children are particularly sensitive. 10 years on, they are still tested for thyroid gland abnormality. Babies have been born with deformities and abnormalities. Many have cancer. ITN asked Linda Walker of the charity Children of Chernobyl, and just back from Belarus, how people are coping today.
In the contaminated areas, the vast majority of the children are ill. Perhaps 90% of the children have thyroid problems, have the damage to their immune systems, and have all sorts of lung diseases. Some people don't understand how dangerous the radiation is. Others decide to close their minds to it. I spoke to people who grew potatoes in the land the year after the accident and said the potatoes were enormous and looked very strange. And they thought, what do we do? Do we feed these to our children, or do we have no food for the children? Is it better to die of starvation or to risk dying from radiation?
Thousands of kilometers away, in the peaceful countryside of Wales, the green hillsides still hide the remnants of the world's worst nuclear disaster. Still, the soil is monitored for poisonous traces that will stay for centuries.
9 days wonder. Now, it isn't just going to be a 9 years wonder. I should think it's a 90 years wonder. Nobody knows, do they?